We're live.
All right, welcome aboard, everyone, to another edition of TDS Live, the SMU Pregame Show. Alongside me, as always, Seth Varnadore. As we get set, we're 30 minutes from kickoff between the South Florida Bulls and the SMU Mustangs, live from Dallas, Texas. Seth, finally, kind of getting through the tough slate for the Bulls. What are you hoping you see from the Bulls, and what can they accomplish today down in Texas?
I'm really looking for the offense to see if they can continue the momentum they found in the BYU game against a different style of defense. I think going forward, if they can do that, that's kind of the most indicative thing of what they'll be like the rest of the year. If they take a step back, then you obviously don't feel quite as good. But if they can keep that momentum going against a different style of defense this week, then you feel pretty good about where they're at and where they're headed. Defensively, the back end is so hurt. It's so hard. This game's kind of a and we have some news on that when we get to the depth chart. It's just they're so shallow in depth on the back end that it's kind of hard to draw any conclusions, I think, from this game. But I'm really looking to see how the offense looks.
Exactly, and I think hopefully we've tempered some of the expectations, right? I mean, this is a real high-powered SMU offense against a very, very depleted USF secondary, and you hinted at it here, Seth. Let's pull up the depth chart. We got some news and notes as we get toward kickoff here.
So there's a quick look just to kind of how the talent stacks up on both sides of the ball. USF's got some talent. SMU's got a lot of high-end talent, though. I think their starters are pretty high-end. You can see that here when you look at the starters group. And then you notice here we have Bryce Miller and TJ Robson both kind of highlighted here in yellow. We might have gotten some news on both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you heard about Bryce? I know he missed last week with that ankle injury at BYU, and Sean Atkins and Jimmy Horn kind of slotted in there. What have you been hearing?
So from Will Turner, just kind of looking through Will, he's on site. He said Bryce Miller suited up and taking warm-ups, but he did that last week against BYU as well. And then he also said it looks like TJ Robinson is out. He's right now they're in warm-ups. He's out there in jersey and shorts. And then just breaking in right now on the other side of the ball, it looks like Ulysses Bennett, the starting running back for SMU, is also out today.
So wow!
That'll help. He's got a pretty good backup in Trey Siggers, but Ulysses Bennett has been a really good player the last few years for SMU, so he will not be playing today. So that hopefully provides a little help for the USF defense. But right now we're seeing some kind of late breaking stuff with who's playing. I think Bryce Miller's still up in the air, but TJ Robinson appears to be out, so that's going to hurt your defensive backs even more.
Yep.
And then starting running back for SMU, Ulysses Bentley, is out as well.
That's two brutal breaks for both teams, quite frankly. TJ Robinson, I think we're running out of transfers in the secondary at this point. I think he may be the last of them. Yeah. So it looks like Jalen Herring came in, a true freshman. He got some playing time last week when TJ Robinson went out. So I would expect him to kind of slot in, and then it's just going to be a mix and match thing, I think, for the secondary, trying to figure out what combinations work. And man, that's just a tough blow for this USF team who was already the deck was already kind of stacked against them heading into the game, but this injury kind of really shines an even bigger light on just the absolute devastation the secondary has seen through 5 weeks of the season.
And Makai on the back end as well. Makai LaPointe, he's not. I don't have him listed here as a starter, but he played last week, so I assume he'd probably slip back into his starting role as well. Hopefully, you get him back at a little more full speed. He looked a little gimpy at times still last week, so hopefully another week he's kind of feeling better. But yeah, losing another corner, that's tough. I'd be interested. I mean, there's some guys last year. Like I thought Chris Townsville played really well last year when he got his opportunities. We haven't really seen much of him this year. So I think they do have some talent. And then you brought in a lot of talented freshmen in the defensive backfield. Maybe some of these guys will get pressed into playing time a little bit sooner than you were hoping to as a staff. But you never know. So
Exactly. And then, as you mentioned, on the flip side for SMU, Ulysses Bentley, he's averaging 7.6 yards per carry through 4 games. And he had a really big day last week against TCU, but his backup, Trey Siggers, also went for over 100 yards as the Mustangs racked up 350 yards on the ground last week, and then just added in a paltry like 225 through the air. With Tanner Mordecai, it's really still a true pick your poison. It's going to be interesting to see what the USF's defense, tries to take away today. We've talked about it ad nauseum about how they tried to take away the pass and take away the run to force BYU and Florida to make those throws, and they did make those throws against a healthier secondary through those 2 games. Yeah. So it's going to be real interesting what Glenn Spencer has cooked up. They're going to need to create more pressure than they have been, get Tanner Mordecai off of his spot, drop his eyes, do something. TCU was able to create 3 turnovers from Tanner last week, but without pressure, it's going to be pretty easy for Tanner to kind of sit back and pick apart this USF defense. And SMU hasn't a lot of sacks, so something's got to break at this point.
Yeah, and then like Eric mentions here, hopefully the live tackling this week has helped. I think that's going to be like your big issue. If you can tackle better, then as you go through the game, you can play off a little bit more because you feel better about coming up and making tackles. Last week against BYU, you saw they'd play off, and then BYU would throw the ball out for an easy completion. And then you miss 3 tackles. All of a sudden, a 5-yard throw becomes a 15-yard gain. So it kind of negates playing off because they're still picking up big chunks in the passing game. So that'll be impactful this week. We got a couple people talking about the line. I think Nick thinks that 21 is way too high here. So what do you this started, I think, at 19.5 initially, and it's climbed up to 21. That's what it sat at today when I went and got it. The over-under set at 68. So they're expecting a pretty high-scoring game here. How do you feel about this line? USF, his last week was plus 1,000 to beat BYU, plus 850 this week to beat SMU. What do you think about this line? I know you probably feel like it's too high. I know a lot of USF fans see it and are kind of surprised at it.
I'm not surprised per se. I think it's probably right in line. I think Vegas has kind of figured out some college football numbers at this point through a month of the season. At this point, I think we're a full month into the year, and with USF being just so depleted, even though they can maybe take the air out of the ball a little bit and limit those offensive possessions for SMU is still really effective with those limited possessions. You saw BYU score 5 touchdowns on 8 possessions last week. I think SMU can kind of simulate that same thing. Now, on the flip side, SMU's defense isn't great. So maybe USF can get a couple of quick hitter possessions that they weren't able to do against BYU, because BYU does rush 3, drop 8. So you got to kind of dink and dunk your way down the field. But I don't want USF to get into a shootout with this team. I don't think they're there yet. Ask me in a year, and I think, yeah, absolutely. With this offense, with Timmy McClain and the talent that's there, you can win some shootouts. But right now, you've got to be a little bit conservative with the ball. Make sure you're deliberate with where you're throwing it. Just be safe with the ball. And I think Timmy did a great job last week doing that. Hopefully he can continue that in a less hostile environment, if we're being quite frank.
And you see here, I think that is the strategy. We're about to bring in a special correspondent here, but I think that is the strategy today. You see here on the USF football website here, they're talking on the team site there. They're talking about the offense looking to control the ball. So that seems like a concerted effort and something they did against BYU last week, where they're trying to. So that should be something that we saw last week, hopefully carrying over, trying to take the air out of the ball, like you said. And I think a couple people, Eric again, I think that's what it seems like. That's what they're going for based on this piece right here. You don't want to give SMU a ton of chances at it. They're really good. So if you get some stops, you obviously want to limit their possessions. Every stop you get is at a premium in this game. And so I think offensively, if you can run the ball, control the clock a little bit, limit their possessions, then that'll help you out quite a bit.
100% agreed here. And for Timmy McLean to kind of continue to take this next step in his maturation, we saw him be smart with the ball last week on the road, a very hostile environment. What does he have to do this week to kind of continue to take that same, I know, be careful with the ball, be smart with it, but is there something that you want to see from him to kind of see that, yeah, this is a step-by-step process, and he's check this part off as we get deeper into the season?
I think my biggest thing with him this week is if I believe, and we've talked about it a little bit off air, even on the podcast and stuff this week. I think we both think that this SMU defense is going to be a little more aggressive than BYU's defense last week. So I think completing passes in tighter coverage this week. He did a really good job of finding the holes in the zone last week and completing coverage or completing passes in those holes in the coverage. This week, I want to see him complete some throws with a little bit of tighter coverage. Maybe he's got to beat some guys on man. He's got to throw some slants or some stuff against that tighter man coverage that he's kind of been up and down with so far this year. There's been some throws where he's been right on the money. There's been a few in the intermediate area that have been a little off. I just want to see him take that step there, because I think if he's able to make those throws where people play man coverage and you're able to punish man coverage, then this offense takes even another step forward. If you can't do that, then people will just start playing a ton of man. So, yeah. Let's get. I would love to see a guy like Jimmy Horn get the ball in some space too. If they're going to play man coverage, get those guys out there that are explosive and give them a chance.
I really loved what BYU did. Is our special guest?
We'll see. Let's check. Let's add our special correspondent here.
Honestly, I can't hear you guys at all.
Just go.
There's a live DJ here behind me at the live Alumni Association tailgate, and then there's quite a bit of people here. So, oh no, it's not facing me. Sorry. But there's a good contingent of people here. What's up, baby? I can't hear you guys at all. I know we were gonna try to do a live correspondence here, but it's not gonna work. I tried my best. I'm sorry, guys.
Wow.
I'll see you guys after the game when I'm blacked out.
Oh. Well, there we go. Well, we did our best, folks. Steve is at the Irish 31 USF Alumni Association event of Bulls Brewfest down there at West Shore Plaza. You guys, there's 20 minutes to kick here, a little less than 20 minutes. If you're close, head on down there, have some fun. It looks like I think I saw Lauren down there, and I think the USF Wizard, I believe, was there. Go hang out with them if you can, and correspond back. I know we've got some cool stuff lined up with Steve. Hopefully it works. You never know with this kind of thing as we kind of do a makeshift events here, and try to create some hashtag content as we get going. But before Steve was there, I was kind of mentioning, I don't even know what I was going for. Something about BYU. I remember that.
I was just talking about them playing against tighter coverage possibly this week. BYU kind of sitting back a little bit more. Is SMU going to come up and play, a little bit tighter coverage? It's kind of where we were at. I'm talking about Timmy's next step. Kind of what's his next step in maturation? Right. What do you want to see?
I know he was pretty good with the short to intermediate routes against the zone, right? And I guess it's just tight coverage, create some good open plays, right? I mean, it just seems simple at that point. But I know where I was going with this. Last week, that final touchdown for Jaron Mangum to kind of make it a one-score game, they used motion. to kind of create some flow, and they did it a few times. And BYU was really successful at making USF move, and they scored some points off of some motion plays. Let's see that if SMU goes a bit more aggressive with their man coverage, make these guys move, right, and try to get them flowing one way, cut back the other. Try to create some separation. You're going to have to do something. I think we've talked about it on the podcast in the film room. This is one of those games where if you win the toss, you take the ball, and you go down there and you score. It, to hell with the extra possession in the second half, right? You make a statement now. Score some points, get on the board, make them chase you at least for a quarter, or at least for a second possession. Take the air out of the ball. Why not run another 19-play, 94-yard drive that takes up 9 minutes of the game clock? That's what you want to see. I can't stress it enough. You don't want, if SMU has like 12 possessions today, it's going to be a long day. You've got to limit those. You got to limit those possessions because even with Ulysses Bentley out,
you feel like they'll score you feel like they're going to score on about 75% of their possessions. I think would be that's kind of how you feel going into the game. Touchdown or field goal, some type of points probably on like 75% of possessions. So if you give them a lot of possessions, that's not going to end up well. If you can limit them, and then I think this was your big emphasis last week, and it's kind of going to be something to watch going forward, is when you get in the red zone. On offense, you got to score touchdowns. On defense, you got to hold people to field goals. If you do that, that's wins on both sides. I think SMU is going to move the ball. If they don't, I'll be really surprised, and USF's defense will play really well. But they're going to move the ball up and down the field. When you get in those red zone areas, you got to hold them to field goals. If you can do that, you give yourself a chance. Because even if they score on 75% of their possessions, like we're saying now, if they're scoring field goals on most of those, well, then they can score for two field goals. We go down and score a touchdown. And, yeah, I think BYU was more than 7. I think
they were 5 of 8.
So
the eighth possession was the one that just killed the clock. So they scored on 5 of 7 possessions in the game prior to that final drive just to ice the clock.
And I think this SMU offense is it's a different type of challenge, but they may be tougher to defend than the BYU offense.
Absolutely. And, and if you kind of break down the BYU possessions, right, one was a blocked field goal in close. I think they had it at the 5-yard line. Easily could have been another score, right? The defense held up, and some questionable play calls by BYU on second and third down to kind of help USF out there. I worry that SMU's not going to make those mistakes. Their kicking's a little shaky, if I'm being honest. They're 2 for 4 through the kicking game, and they've used 2 kickers already. They've missed 2 extra points. And they've already gone for it 6 times on 4th down. So they can be a little aggressive. Sonny Dykes tends to be a little bit more aggressive, especially when you've got such a talented offense. You feel like you can take a little bit more risks, offensively to extend those drives. So that's something to be worried about. Again, we'll harp on it until the cows come home and USF actually does something about it. 3rd downs are, going to be vital. Again, right? It's just another one of those things. SMU's completing they're converting 47% of their 3rd downs. Yeah, they're 24-51, and opponents are 20 of 57, which is 35%, which is still higher than what USF is converting offensively through 4 games. So that's going to be, again, another thing to watch. If USF can take what they did in the second half, where they were 4 of 7 on 3rd down, and then 3 of 3, which is huge on 4th down. That's where you need to see it. That's where you need to see the progression of this offense. And this isn't going to be Syracuse 2015, guys. I want you, Syracuse wasn't that good in 2015. This is a very talented SMU team. All right. And I get where a lot of the thought process is, 1 and 3, you're wearing God's helmet. You're wearing the road whites, the all whites. I get it, but it's completely different circumstances here. Stay competitive. That's what you want to see. Now, if Jeff Scott and Charlie Weiss just completely unleash Timmy McClain, and it's like that again, and we see the reverse pass, and I guess it would be Xavier Weaver would be the Rasheem Bronson who caught the touchdown at
Xavier Weaver had that throw against Florida, right? So he's probably their designated receiver thrower.
Yeah, so I mean, Rasheed Bronson was good for one very long touchdown a season for USF. I don't know who that is for USF. It could be Xavier Weaver, but he would have to like pull a Nelson from The Simpsons and like throw it and then run down and catch it and have to do everything himself.
Jimmy Horn. He's gotten himself open deep a few times. They just haven't hit him.
Yeah, so it really comes down to that. A few splash plays, create some havoc, get some pressure. That I mean, we'll harp on it until this thing changes. But golly, the defensive line, the front seven really need to create some pressure to give the Bulls the fighting chance. And regardless of how depleted the secondary is, you could have in his prime, Darrelle Revis and Richard Sherman out there, and you're not getting any pressure. Eventually, someone's going to get open, and that's what can happen.
Yeah, that's the that's kind of the trade-off. We see a lot of people talking about play off more, right? You play off more, maybe you don't give up the huge plays, but you're probably going to give up even more completions because it's really hard to get pressure with three guys. And if you're playing off, you're probably only rushing three with the way the defense is constructed right now. Maybe you'll see more four-man front, and they'll drop seven, but I think a lot of it would be three, drop eight. So they're just in a bind right now with where their depth is and not being able to play a little bit more, I think, diverse coverages. And I think that may have even started in week one when your starting safety gets hurt in practice. I think that kind of set them back a little bit on defense. They're a little snake bit, I think, on that side of the ball the last few years. But hopefully you see a good play in this week. Maybe you can get SMU to make some mistakes, and that is the one thing you can do. If you play off and make them just slowly go down the field, maybe they'll make some more mistakes. And like you said, they threw 3 interceptions last week. So it's not like they're playing perfect ball, but if you give them a lot of possessions, they can make up. They still scored 40 points last week, even with wasting 3 possessions. So
yep, absolutely. And I think they've turned the ball over 7 times through 4 games. So they're not immune to the boneheaded play, to the mistake. Tanner Mordecai is responsible for 5 of those 7 turnovers. On the flip side, I believe they forced 8 turnovers. So the defense is good at getting the ball back. I mean, 2 a game, that's nothing to sneeze at. And what they've been really good at, so they've turned the ball over 7 times, but opponents have only scored 6 points off of those 7 turnovers, which is incredible. That is.
And weren't they also pretty good in the red zone defensively?
Yeah, they are. So they've had defensively, they've had 16 red zone possessions, and they've allowed 11 scores, but only 7 of those 16 possessions resulted in red zone touchdowns, which is 44%. That is great job when you know your defense isn't that good, but you bone up in the red zone and you force them to attempt field goals, and that's what you want when you don't have a defense that's like Alabama or something, like a really good talented defense. You gotta hope, right. You gotta hope for some red zone roulette, as you called it on the podcast this week, and that's it, right? You use that back of the end zone as an extra defender to give yourself a fighting shot, because they can't take the top off of you because there's that boundary there. But yeah, that's where you need to have some success, and it feels like we're repeating the same stuff over and over again, but it's because they keep coming true over and over again, right? So something's got to break. I know the coaching staff knows this, the players know this, but at some point it's got to break one way or the other, and I want to see it closer to breaking the right way than the wrong way this week as we head into the bye week, because you don't want a sour taste going into the bye week here, folks, and then you're lining up for 3 fairly winnable games. I know Temple was pretty feisty. Did they end up beating Memphis today?
Yeah.
Well,
which I think is more of an indictment on Memphis than Temple. But they got a Georgia transfer at quarterback. He seems to be all right. They won 34-31. scored. Looks like they had a big second quarter, but I still don't think they're that good. But we'll see. I really think that this league has got two really good teams at the top. I think SMU is one of them. I think it seems like it's going to be SMU Cincinnati. I don't know what to think with Central Florida with their injuries and stuff. But then after that, it seems that everybody else is kind of just everybody's on any given Saturday
or Friday night or Thursday.
I think the league's kind of in a toss-up this year for outside those top two. So
yeah,
you never know. And even those top two, if they don't play well, I think they can get beat if they turn the ball over and because everybody's got some pretty explosive players. It's just a matter of getting them the ball. So we'll see. Yeah. We got about 5 minutes till kick now, so we'll probably jump out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be
back
here
at halftime.
Yes, sir. We'll break down the first half as we always do on road games, and try to hopefully bring some levity if it gets out of hand. And I want USF fans to hear this and really pay heed to this. Now, obviously, get your jokes off because I mean, if you're not laughing, you're crying sometimes with USF, and I get it, but this has been a really tough first 5 games, and you won the game that you were supposed to win. Okay, so you didn't pull at Florida State, right? You did not lose to the team you were supposed to beat, and then these 4 games you're not supposed to win them, and that is okay right now. Just brick by brick, folks. Don't freak out if USF ends up losing this game. Just show improvement from game 1 to game 12, and the Bulls have done that from game 1 to game 4. Let's continue that process, continue that trajectory, get into the bye week, get some guys healthy, and then rip off 3 straight wins, and it's a completely different season.
There you go.
There we go. We'll see you guys at halftime. Thanks for tuning in to TDS Live, the SMU pregame show. We'll be back soon.